Release the Kraken!
Welcome back, fellow game designers. In our last video, we went ahead and set up the references for our ship. Now this one we're going to start modeling. And it is a bit late for me, so I may be a little bit tired, but let's try to bear with it and work on. You can start off with any shape that you like, but I'm going to show you a technique if you haven't used it before by using the Create Polygon tool. So I'm going to go up to my Mesh Tools, come down to Create Polygon, and I'm just going to jump into my top view. Again, that's spacebar, and then hover your mouse over and spacebar. And all I want to do is lay out the foundation of my ship. You can really do this any way you want. You can make the triangle, you can make each individual wing, whatever not. I'm going to make this diamond shape here. So I'm just going to start at the nose. I'm going to click. Then I'll go and get one of the corners here. And to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to go up to my grid panel here. And you can see there's a little grid icon. I'll just turn the grid off just to make it a little bit easier to see. I'll continue up and I'll put a point at the tail. And then I'll put a point at the next corner. And then I will hit enter. Now I have a solid image. And you can see that this is inside out. So if yours is black like this, that means it's just upside down. And that just depends on the direction you went with your creation. If you went clockwise, it's going to be inside out. If you went counterclockwise, it should be right side up. If yours is inside out, go ahead and select Mesh Display and then hit reverse. Very good. Now I want to go up to shading. I'm going to come down to X-ray. That way I can kind of see through my model. And I want to straighten up some of my points. So we'll go to vertex selection. So right click, go to vertex. I'm going to start off by doing the corners here. So this one and that one, if I drag a box, I'll grab both. I'll hit the scale tool, which is R. I'll simply drag this forward box. I'll drag it back, and you'll see that these 2 points will align flat. For the nose, I want to snap the nose to the grid. So I'll turn my grid back on. Click the little grid icon here. I'm going to hold down the X key, and if I drag the red arrow, you'll see it snaps to the grid points. And I just want to snap it to the center grid. Right there. Perfect. I'll do the same thing to the tail. So I'll grab that one, hold down the X key, and just make sure it's snapped to the center. Now, as I'm looking at this, you can see how my tail has a point here and a point here. I actually don't care about that. That's a mistake that I made when I made this inside of Photoshop. I had some points here, and I actually would prefer that this would be a straight edge, so I'm not going to add these points. If you want them, go ahead and add them. I'm going to skip those. As the artist, I get to choose, and I'm choosing. But I will connect the dots across so that I can do some more work on this. So I'll go over to my multi-cut tool. It's a little knife up here. If you don't see it, make sure you're in the poly modeling tab here. We'll get our little knife tool. And I'm going to take this point. If I hover my mouse over, I'll click it, and then I'll come over. I'm no longer clicking, and I'll just hover my mouse over the next point. I'll click it. It creates a line, and then just hit enter or right click, and that'll complete the line. I'll do the same thing from the nose down to the tail. And then enter. If you're not sure how to move the screen, that's hold down the Alt key and then middle mouse, and that'll let you move the screen here. Alright, so we're good there. I'll hit Q to turn off my tool. I'm going to select this middle point, and then I'll go to, yeah, that'll work. So my fore view is going to be pretty handy for this, so I can see my front and my side and my top. I'm going to hit W to bring up the move tool. And then in one of these views, I want to move this point. So I'm going to move the point up. I'm going to line it up right about there. And you can see that this is kind of solid. So for each one of these panels, we have its own shading tab. Do you see that? I'm going to go down to the shading tab on my front view. I'll go down to X-ray. And I'll do the same thing for my side view. X-ray. And I'll leave this one as it is for now. But you can see in my front view, this dot lines up to the top, but in my side view, it needs to go back some. So I'm going to take my front arrow and I'll move it back so it lines up. And look at that. This point and that point and that point, they all align. You can see that right there. That's lined up here on the edge of the window. That one's lined up, that one's lined up. So now what I want to do is start forming these wings. If I look at my front view, you can see how this edge slopes all the way down, and I need to make this slope here. The easiest way to make this slope is to complete the triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this point, and then I will grab that point on the side here. Go to my front view just to maximize it by hitting space. I'm going to use the scale tool, so R, and then I'll use my little red arrow here, or my red box, and I'll just drag, and that'll expand both. And I'll expand them both till they're about there. That looks pretty good. But of course you can see, if I go to my foreview, that this is a bit wide here, and that these points are a bit far. So what I'm going to do is move them back. So I hit the W key, and I will move these 2 points back. Like so. So I'm going to move them back about to where it lines up with the wing. You can see it lines up with the wing here. Now you can see up here, this lines up, that lines up, but this is a bit wide. That happened because when I was making my references in Photoshop, I didn't make sure to get the wings the correct distance apart. Sometimes that happens. If they don't line up perfectly, you'll have a mistake. But I actually like it better if the wings are closer. So I'm going to make this, I'll hit R, and I'll just bring the wings in using my scale tool. I like that a little bit better. I'm going to bring them a little bit forward as well. Alright, I'm going to jump into my perspective view. And if I look, this is the rough shape of the ship. But there are a few things I need to do. I need to flatten off the wings in the back, and I need to fill the hole on the bottom. Let's flatten off the wings first. I'll go up into my top view. Again, I'm using spacebar to jump into views. And what I'll do here is I'm going to add a point across the back. So I'm going to take my multi-cut tool. I'm going to click here. And then I'm going to come over all the way across, click here. And then right click to seal the deal. Or you can hit enter. And now I have this cut for the wings. And now what I need to do is cut in the point for this tail. So I'll go over to this corner. It doesn't really matter which corner you start with. But I'll go ahead and click. And then I'm going to go up to the corner of the tail. And then click. And I'll come down to this corner. And then click. And then I will right click. So now I have this little triangle here. And I can cut off these parts of the wing. So I'll go into face selection, select the face that I don't want, press delete, come over to the other face that I don't want, press delete, and now I have this shape. And I want to make sure that this point and that point are even, because if they're not, it's going to bug me. So I'm going to go up to vertex selection, I'll grab this point, and then I will hold X and snap it to the grid right about there. I'll take this point, hold X, and then I will snap by dragging to that point there. That gets me this point and that point crisp and even, and then I'll take both points, I'll use my scale tool, and as I scale it, they will both be the same distance apart from each other. And now I know that this side and that side are even, and I'm happy. Yay. We're going to make a couple changes to this ship design. So I'm going to go grab my multi-cut tool. I'm going to start at this corner here. So I'll grab this one. And I want to come down to this point here. So I'll go ahead and click that. And then I'll right click, and that solves that edge. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll get this one. I'll come down and click somewhere in here to solve that edge. And then I'll get rid of my tool by hitting Q. And same kind of deal, I'm going to even these up. So I'm going to grab this point and this point. I'm going to use my scale tool, so R, and then I will scale forward to even those up. And I want to make sure that these are pretty even from each other, so I will snap one of them to the grid point here, so X, and I'll snap to there. And I'll grab this one, and then X, and snap to there. You can grab them both, and then R scale, and adjust however much you like. If I come out to here, I can see that. Looks pretty good. So now what I'll do is close up the bottom and separate the wings off. So I'll go into vertex selection. Vertex. I'll grab this point here, and I'll grab this other back point right there. So between the two tails, or between the two wings, W for the move tool. And then I'll hold down the X key, and I'll drag the arrow down so it snaps to the ground there. So there are my wings, and there's my tail. Let's go into edge mode. I'm going to select the bottom edge. It doesn't matter which one. So any of these bottom edges. I'm going to hold Shift, hold right click. It'll bring up a submenu, and I'll go down to Fill Hole. And now the bottom is filled in, but I have to do some cutting. So let's go ahead and turn off our reference images. So I hit the little V. That way when I turn my camera, I don't go behind the image. And what I want to do here is I want to close up some of these cuts. So I'll go and grab my cut tool again. Let's turn off the grid. I will hover over this point, grab it, move over to this point, click. So now I have that cutting straight across. I'll hit enter. I'll do kind of the same thing for the tail. So I'll get this point and then that point. I'll hit enter. And then I'm just going to close this off to the corner. So I'll do from the tail to the corner of the wing here, like that. Hit enter. And then on this side, I'll do the same thing. So I'll get this corner of the tail to that corner, hit enter. So now those are all cut, and there are no n-gons or bad geometry. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and name our ship now that we have one. This is going to be the hero ship. Awesome, awesome. And now the last thing I want to do for this model is the UVs. Now whenever you make a 3D model, you have to do UVs. UVs tell the model where the color goes. And if you don't do them, the color is going to get a bit weird when you try to do texture mapping. So to get to the UV editor, make sure you select your model. We're going to come up and we want to see the UV tab here. If you don't see UVs, make sure you are in modeling. Okay. So go to the UV tab, open the UV editor. And here are our UVs, and you can see they are lovely to look at. So go ahead and just adjust this here. And now UVs are always a little bit tricky when you're first starting out, but really they're not that big of a deal. You're just taking your 3D shape and you're gonna cut it in such a way that you can represent it in a 2D shape over here. And that 2D shape makes it easier to paint on. If you want to think of it as like a bearskin rug, you have a whole bear, but you can make it into a rug. That's kind of mean. Or you can take a pizza box, and you know, if it's folded up, it's a box shape, but if you unfold it, it's then a flat surface that can be painted on. Same kind of deal here. We're going to take our ship, and you can see the UVs are a jumbled mess. I can't even begin to tell you where the ship begins and whatever. Now there are a few ways to make the UVs. We can come up to create and then come down to the planar option here. Planar just means it's going to do it from a flat side. And I'm going to go over to the option box here, hit the box, and we will have this option to take a projection of our plane from the side. I'm going to do it from the Y, that's going to be my top, and I will hit project. And that's going to give me this kind of layout. Now this looks fine, but we actually have our top and our bottom in the same space, and we can't do that. So we have to separate these two. So what we're going to do is open up our toolkit, go up to Tools, come down to Hide or Show Toolkit. So if it's hidden, it'll look like this, and you can go to Tools and then Show. If your toolkit comes torn off like this, just dock it, just grab the tab, and then hover over your UV window, kind of like that, where the mouse lines up, and then just kind of dock it again. And we'll have a window. And all we got to do is cut this outer border edge here. So I'm going to go into edges, and then I will get this outer edge. So I'm going to go all the way around on the outside here. And now that I have all that, I'm going to go over to my cut and sew option, and I can do the UV cut, like so. And when I cut it, you see we get this white outline. That means that the top and bottom halves have been separated. So I can go to my UV selection, so UV selection here, and then double click on this part here, just anywhere on here should be good. Now we have that selected, press W, and then just move it, and you should have two separate pieces. There's your top, and there's your bottom. Pretty easy. And then all you got to do is lay them out some way on this 0 to 1 space. So where this green and red line is, this is our 0 to 1 coordinate space. Most programs will not read your UVs from out here. Some do, but a lot of them just won't. So it's best practice to keep everything on your 0, 1 space over here. So I'm just going to grab both of these, and then I can hit the R key, and then I will grab middle scale and just scale these down so that I can lay both out onto here. So I'll get this one here, and then this one, I'll move this into here somewhere. Awesome. And there are our UVs laid out. Now, just as a little bit of a bonus, you can use certain tools to make your workflow a little bit faster. So I'm going to go into object mode here, and this will work for our UVs. It's perfectly fine, but we do have a tool for this. So if I go up to create, we do have an automatic feature. Now automatic is not good for biological things. So like if you're doing an animal or a creature or a person, automatic's a terrible choice. But if you're doing something like a spaceship or a table or a chair, automatic's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the option box here. In my automatic projection, all I want to do is I'm going to hit just reset here, just make sure it's default. And we'll do this as 6 pieces or 6 planes, fewer pieces, and then whatever the default settings are. And if I hit the project option, you can see that it already went through and it did what we just did for us. And that's perfectly fine. So either one of those methods will get the job done. However you do it is up to you. Ultimately, you're going to end up with 2 halves of your ship, and you should be in the 0 to 1 space. Alright, so those are the UVs done. Let's go ahead and close our UV window for now. I go to object mode. And then let's go ahead and clear the history. So I'll go up to edit, delete by type, history. So now our model is nice and clean. And in the next one, we'll go ahead and do the texturing. So stay tuned, and I shall see you next time. Hey guys, thank you for checking out my channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you enjoyed that video you just watched, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Or if you want to support the channel, check me out on Patreon or pick up one of my books, Life and Times of Dinah Marton or The Guardian's Path of Ascension. Speaking of which, I'm converting The Guardians into a graphic novel / comic book series. Here is a sneak peek. My wonderful artist, Patrick, is doing a great job. I'm excited. I want to push this out as soon as possible. So definitely keep your ears and eyes open for that. I'll be making announcements as we get closer, and I'll post some shots of that as we go. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can check me out on Twitter. I guess now it's X. Who does that? It's BruceRF1 at Twitter, or at whatever the new thing for Twitter is. Anyway, hopefully see you there, and I'll see you guys next time.